I still remember the taste of the red wine beef stew that night. It was my signature dish, the one Jason used to say he could eat for the rest of his life and never get tired of it. But tonight, he didn't even bother picking up his fork. His eyes were glued to his phone, his thumb scrolling nonstop, and every so often he'd curl his lip into this smug little smile. A smile that wasn't for me. I'm Chloe, 35. People look at my life and call it perfect. A quiet suburban house, two well-behaved kids, and a husband who's a sales director climbing the ladder. But they don't see the cracks spreading under that glossy paint. They don't see me, the woman who gave up a promising marketing career to hold the fort at home, now feeling invisible in my own house. Jason, are you even listening to me? I asked, keeping my voice as steady as I could. Jason looked up, irritated, like I'd just interrupted an important meeting. He set his phone down and let out this long, theatrical sigh, the kind a man does when he wants you to believe he's carrying the weight of the world, when in reality, his biggest burden is deciding what color tie to wear in the morning. Chloe, we need to talk, Jason said, his voice ice cold. Not the kind of, we need to talk about our summer plans, but the kind that tells you a Category 5 storm is about to hit. About what? My heart started pounding. About us. About this boring as hell life. He waved a hand around the dinner table like it included me, the meal I cooked, and our 10-year marriage. I feel like I'm dying a slow death, Chloe. Look at you. When's the last time you wore makeup? When's the last time you put on something sexy instead of those baggy pajamas? His words hit my self-worth like knives. I looked down at my lounge set. It was clean, comfortable, practical for chasing two energetic kids. I still did yoga, I still took care of myself. But yes, I wasn't as polished as I was in my 20s. But I did all of this. For who? I'm busy with the kids, Jason. You get home late, the house. Excuses. Always excuses, Jason snapped. I'm sick of it. I'm a man, Chloe. I have needs. I need something new. Something exciting. I'm at my peak. And you're letting yourself slide. Tears filled my eyes. This was textbook gaslighting. He turned my sacrifices into laziness, my love into a burden. Then he pulled a thin stack of papers from his briefcase. I don't want a divorce. I still care about the kids. But I can't live like this forever. So here's the solution. He shoved the pages toward me. The bold print slammed into my vision and made my stomach drop. Open marriage agreement. What? What is this? I stammered. Freedom. Jason smirked, the satisfied grin of a man who thinks he's doing you a favor. We open the marriage. You can sleep with anyone you want, and so can I. No jealousy, no emotional attachments, just taking care of physical needs. Think of it like a long-term hall pass. This is the only way to save our marriage, Chloe. I felt nauseated. You're out of your mind. We have kids. You want to bring strangers into our lives? Of course not in the house. It's all spelled out right there, Jason said, tapping the paper. No impact on the kids. No asset disputes based on infidelity. I had my personal lawyer draft it very carefully. Right then, a wife's instinct handed me the truth. This didn't come out of nowhere. It's that intern, isn't it? The one named Tiffany or Brittany, whatever her name is that you keep bringing up? Jason's face flickered with panic for half a second, then hardened into anger. Don't drag other people into this. This is between you and me. Tiffany is just a coworker. She's young, energetic. She knows how to enjoy life. Things you lost a long time ago. So there it was. He wanted to legalize cheating with a 22-year-old side piece. He wanted a maid wife at home to raise the kids and run the house, while he got to parade a girlfriend outside without being labeled a traitor. A midlife crisis fantasy so perfect it was cruel. I'm not signing, I'm not sharing my husband. I pushed the papers away, tears spilling down my face. Jason shot to his feet, his expression suddenly terrifyingly calm. Fine. If you don't sign, tomorrow morning I'll file for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. I'll hire the best lawyer money can buy. I'll prove you have no income, that you're mentally unstable, and I'll go after full custody. You'll walk away with nothing, Chloe. Think carefully. Sign this. And you're still Mrs. Jason. You still have a home. The kids still have both parents. Or you lose everything. I stared at the man I'd loved with everything I had. Now the person in front of me was a stranger, cold, selfish, and cruel. I looked around our warm kitchen and thought about my kids asleep upstairs. I didn't have my own savings. I'd been out of the job market too long. Fear flooded my body. Jason knew exactly where I was weak. He knew I would never gamble with losing my children. He looked at me with pity mixed with contempt. Come on, Chloe, be realistic. Who's going to want a 35-year-old mom like you? You won't even use that freedom. You just stay home, take care of the kids, and let me live the life I deserve. That's fair. Fair. He thought I was old, used up merchandise that no one would want but him. He thought this agreement was a one-way ticket. For him. My hand shook as I picked up the pen. Humiliation burned in my throat. But underneath the pain, something else sparked. If he wanted to use the law to trap me, I'd use the law to play the game back. Fine, I said, my voice hoarse but firm. I'll sign. On one condition. The no lawsuits and no jealousy about third parties clause applies absolutely to both sides, and any personal assets earned during this period belong solely to the person who earned them. Of course. Jason laughed and scribbled his signature without even thinking. He was too confident I couldn't do a thing. He figured I was just trying to salvage the last scraps of my pride. I signed my name. Chloe. The moment my pen left the paper, Jason snatched the agreement like he'd struck gold. He whistled, grabbed his phone, and started texting immediately. No doubt the intern. You won't regret it, babe, he called over his shoulder as he headed upstairs to change, even though it was already 9 p.m. Don't wait up, I've got a meeting, an experience. I sat alone at the table and watched his back disappear. He thought he'd just won a massive chess match. He thought he'd locked me into the cage he built. But Jason forgot one thing. When you open the cage door so you can fly out, you also open it for the bird inside to fly away. He thought I was a boring housewife? He was wrong. The game had just begun. The ink wasn't even dry before Jason started living his single life. He didn't bother hiding it anymore. At 6 a.m., he was up early grooming himself, spraying on the expensive cologne he usually refused to waste. He whistled like he was in a good mood while I fought through breakfast prep for the kids. I won't be home for dinner tonight, he said, winking at me through the mirror as he tightened his tie. Got an important networking event. I knew exactly what networking meant. Tiffany, loud bars, luxury hotels, and the joint credit card he swiped to pay for it all. The first few days, I moved like a ghost. I did the chores on autopilot, while my mind chewed on the pain of being discarded. But on the third night, when Jason texted that he'd be late, meaning he wouldn't be home at all, I caught my reflection, puffy eyes, gray skin, and I heard his voice again. Who's going to want a 35-year-old mom like you? It was poison, and it was fuel. Fine, Jason, I muttered. You want to play? I'll play. With trembling hands, I downloaded Tinder and Bumble. I picked a few photos from our trip last year, back when I was laughing and wearing a flattering bikini. In my bio, I kept it simple. Married, but in an open relationship. Looking for smart conversation and men who know how to behave. I tossed the phone on the bed, figuring I'd get a handful of weird drive-by likes at best. Then I took a shower. 20 minutes later, I came back and nearly dropped my phone. 99 plus likes. My inbox was exploding. I scrolled, stunned. Not the creeps I'd worried about. Actual grown men. Engineers, doctors, lawyers, business owners. Men in their late 30s to mid 40s. Mature, polished. Turns out Jason was clueless about the dating market. To a 22-year-old like Tiffany, Jason could look like a daddy with money. But in the real world, women control the gate. And a 35-year-old woman who takes care of herself, who's capable, grounded, and still very much alive, can be exactly what successful men want after they're tired of immature girls. I swiped right on a man named Daniel, 40, a surgical attending. Instantly, it's a match. Hi, Chloe. You have the best smile I've seen on this app all week. Want to grab a glass of wine and tell me about the book you're reading? No, you're so hot. No gross photos. Just lethal, effortless courtesy. That Friday night, I had my mom take the kids. I wore a black slit dress, deep red lipstick, and the heels Jason used to call too much. Daniel picked me up in a sleek sports car. He opened my door, pulled out my chair at a five-star restaurant, the kind Jason always complained was a waste of money. All night, Daniel listened as I talked about art, about the marketing dreams I'd shelved. He looked at me like I was the only woman in the room. "You're too smart to be hidden in a kitchen, Chloe," he said, lifting his wine glass. That sentence woke up the real me. I wasn't a boring housewife. I was Chloe, and I was damn irresistible. I got home at 11 p.m., floating. In my hands was a huge bouquet of Ecuadorian roses Daniel had given me, and guess who was sitting on the living room couch? Jason. He looked worse than I expected. Wrinkled shirt, hollow eyes. He was staring at the credit card statements on his phone, grimacing. Apparently, keeping a 22-year-old girlfriend was more expensive than he thought. Tiffany didn't like home-cooked meals. She liked omakase sushi and designer handbags. A midlife crisis isn't cheap. When I walked in, the scent of my Chanel perfume and the glow on my face made him freeze. His eyes locked on the roses. Where were you?" he asked, voice strained. "On a date," I said casually, putting the flowers in a vase. "Weren't you busy tonight? Why are you home early? Who drove you? Whose black Audi is outside?" Jason stood up fast, jealousy flickering in his eyes. "Daniels. He's the chief surgeon. Very interesting man." I smiled. A smile I hadn't given Jason in years. "He's funny. He never talks over me. And most importantly, he doesn't call me old." Did you actually sleep with him?" Jason choked out, his face burning red. I turned and looked him dead in the eye, cold and sharp. "Jason, Clause 4 in your agreement says no interference in private life and no irrational jealousy. Did you forget? Or do you want me to call my lawyer?" Jason went silent. He opened his mouth and couldn't find a single word. He stared at me like I was an alien. He'd expected me to sit at home crying, waiting for him to toss me scraps of attention. Instead, he was watching me shine without him. "Go to bed, Jason. You look rough." I patted his shoulder and walked upstairs, then locked my bedroom door. That night, I slept better than I had in 10 years. Down in the living room, I heard him slam a beer bottle on the table. He was starting to realize his mistake. But he didn't know. Not yet. His real nightmare hadn't even started. 3 weeks. That's all it took for Jason's world to collapse, while mine lit up like a phoenix rising. The house that used to feel like my prison became Jason's personal hell. He started unraveling. Not because he loved me, but because he was losing control. For men like Jason, losing control hurts more than death. He started clumsy stalking behavior, fishing for my schedule, trying to check my phone when I showered. Cute. My password changed on day one. Every time he saw me spritz perfume or try on a new dress, his face would twitch. "You're going out again tonight?" Jason snarled, blocking the doorway. His eyes drilled into my emerald silk dress. "Where are you going? With who? That doctor again?" I calmly adjusted my earrings, not even looking at him. "Jason, you're violating the agreement, remember? Neither party has the right to interrogate the other about their schedule. Want me to read Clause 3 out loud?" "Stop throwing that damn paper in my face," he yelled, turning purple. "I'm your husband. I have the right to know who my wife is sleeping with." I laughed, thin and cold. "My husband? Then who was the man who said we're just roommates 3 weeks ago?" "You wanted freedom, Jason. I'm giving you freedom. Why don't you use your time with Tiffany? Where is she?" At Tiffany's name, Jason deflated. He stumbled back, collapsed onto the couch, and clawed at his hair. I already knew what was happening. I handled our finances. Even if he was the primary earner, I paid the bills. I'd seen the statements. Tiffany wasn't some innocent girl in love. She loved $500 omakase, $200 bottles of wine, weekend getaways. Jason, with a director's salary but a mortgage and family expenses, was bleeding out fast. And then, inevitably, yesterday the bank sent an alert. Jason's supplemental card had been declined at Gucci. He'd maxed it out. Today, he came home early. No polished look. No heavy cologne. He looked like a rooster that had been plucked clean. "She dumped you?" I asked, like I was asking about the weather. Jason looked up, eyes sunken. He didn't deny it. She called me cheap. She said I'm empty. Can you believe that? After everything I bought her?" I took a sip of tea, swallowing a laugh. "Oh, that's unfortunate. Turns out a midlife crisis has a price tag, huh? She realized you're not a billionaire sugar daddy. You're just a middle-aged man spending past your means." Jason lunged forward and dropped to his knees in front of me, grabbing my hands. This was reverse love bombing, desperation, trying to pull me back into being his safe supply. "Chloe, I was wrong. I'm sorry," he said, voice shaking, trying to squeeze out tears. "She was a mistake. She's shallow. Only you understand me. Let's stop this. I'll tear up the agreement. We'll go back to how it was. I promise I'll be home for dinner every day." He looked at me with hope, waiting for me to break down and forgive him, like the meek wife he remembered. He thought all he had to do was come back, and I'd open my arms. But he didn't see the contempt in my eyes. I gently pulled my hands out of his and stood, grabbing my crystal-studded purse. "Go back to how it was?" I repeated. "You mean back to when you called me a boring mom? Back to when you mocked everything I sacrificed?" "I've changed. I see your value now," Jason pleaded. "No, Jason," I said, staring into him. "You don't see my value. You just realized you don't have value on the market. You got dumped. You ran out of money. Your ego got bruised. So you ran back to the safest shelter you know. You want to close the marriage not because you love me, but because you're terrified I have better options than you." The doorbell rang. Liam, a 42-year-old architect, was here to take me to an art opening tonight. "The game's over, Chloe." Jason shouted, trying to block me. I stepped past him, paused at the door, and looked back one last time. Jason, you got one basic thing wrong, I said, my voice sharp as a razor. For you, this was a game, a thrill. For me, this is freedom. Don't wait up and wash the dishes in the sink. I'm not your maid anymore. I slammed the door and left Jason in the darkness of the house he thought he controlled. He'd opened Pandora's box. Now he had to face what came out of it. But Jason didn't know the worst blow was still coming. He still believed he had control over the assets and the kids. He was about to learn that the agreement he forced me to sign was the death sentence for his own life. Saturday morning, Jason sat at the kitchen table, hair a mess, trying to choke down burnt toast. He was attempting the remorseful husband act, but the air in the house was ice. I set a thick yellow envelope in front of him, right beside his cold coffee. What's this? Plane tickets? You want us to go rekindle things? Jason asked, a ridiculous spark of hope in his eyes. Open it, I said, sipping my Earl Grey, calm as a lake. Jason tore the envelope open and pulled out the papers. The smile died instantly when he saw the bold header on the first page, Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. What the hell is this? He roared, slamming the table and jumping up. I said I'm sorry. I came back. What more do you want? I want freedom, Jason. Real freedom. Not your fake version in that agreement, I said, my voice flat. Jason's face went from red to purple. His narcissism kicked in hard. He threw the papers at me and sneered, twisted and cruel. Fine. You want to play hardball? You think you can leave me that easily? I'll destroy you, Chloe. I'll take the kids. I'll tell the judge you're a slutty mother who abandons her children to sleep with strangers every night. He jabbed a finger at me, triumphant. I have proof. I screenshotted your Tinder profile. I know who you've been with. The court will see you have no morals. You'll lose custody and you won't get a dime from me. That was his final gaslighting strike. He thought I'd panic. He thought my identity as a mother was my fatal weakness. But he didn't know. I'd been waiting for this exact moment since the day I signed his precious paper. The conference room air was tight as a wire. Jason sat beside his attorney, a man who looked aggressive and eager to bite. Across from them sat me and Sarah, my divorce lawyer, a top shark in the city, nicknamed the Great White. Jason's attorney started with threats. My client, Mr. Jason, is seeking full custody. Mrs. Chloe has openly engaged in infidelity, violating marital ethics and negatively impacting the children's mental well-being. We have evidence she stayed out overnight. Jason sat with his arms crossed, staring at me like, "You're done." I glanced at Sarah. She smiled, sharp and polished, then pulled a document from her briefcase. Not a defense memo, a certified copy. Counsel, Sarah said calmly, before you accuse my client of infidelity, I suggest you review this. This is an open marriage agreement signed 2 months ago, drafted by Mr. Jason himself, and forced upon my client. Jason's lawyer's face changed as he read. He skimmed, then stopped. Read Clause 4, Section B aloud, I said, my voice echoing in the room. He hesitated, then read. The parties agree that any romantic or sexual relationships with third parties during the effective period of this agreement are consensual. Both parties waive the right to use such conduct as evidence of infidelity or moral wrongdoing in any future divorce proceedings. The room went silent. Jason's mouth fell open. He'd been so proud of himself for drafting protection, he forgot the blade cut both ways. Exactly, Sarah continued. Every date Chloe went on was legally permitted, by the agreement your client wrote. He can't sue her for what he forced her to accept. The cheating allegation is invalid. Jason stammered. But, but she was out all night. Not finished. Sarah cut him off, pulling out another file, thicker. Let's talk finances. This is the report from the forensic accountant we hired. She dropped the file on the table. Red highlighted numbers glared off the pages. In the last 2 months, while Chloe's dates covered her expenses, Mr. Jason withdrew a total of $18,500 from the joint account. Sarah flipped pages, voice crisp. Chanel bag, $6,000. Ritz-Carlton Hotel, $4,000. High-end dinners, all spent on a woman named Tiffany. I looked straight at Jason and delivered the kill shot. Under family law, that's called dissipation of marital assets. You used our money to fund your mistress, and now you have to reimburse half of it back into my share of the marital estate. And that means, Sarah concluded, tapping her pen, Mr. Jason will have to relinquish his equity in the marital home to offset the dissipation and support calculations. Otherwise, we go to court, and I assure you, the judge will love reading this open marriage agreement. Jason collapsed. He slumped in his chair like wet clay. His attorney rubbed his forehead and whispered something. Probably. Sign. We lost. If we go to court, you'll lose everything. He dug his own grave. He drafted an agreement so he could cheat in peace, and that same agreement stripped him of his ability to play the victim. He drained our money for a side piece, and now he paid with his house. I stood and smoothed my blazer. You thought I was a stupid housewife, Jason? I leaned in, whispering close enough to make him shiver. I worked in marketing for major companies before I ever stepped behind a stove. I know how to read contracts, and I know how to play an open game. I'll see you at the final signing, and be out of my house by Sunday. I walked out of that office into sunlight that had never looked so bright. 6 months after court. I stood on the balcony of the same suburban home, but everything felt different. I replaced the furniture. Jason's black leather couch was gone, replaced with a soft, elegant cream set. The pretentious abstract art he bought to look intellectual was gone too, replaced by bright photos of me and the kids. The air in the house was lighter now. No more cold smoke, no more suffocating tension from a toxic marriage. I breathed in the smell of fresh coffee. Daniel stepped out of the kitchen and slid a hand around my waist. What are you thinking about? He asked, handing me a mug. I'm thinking about freedom. I smiled, resting my head on his shoulder. Daniel wasn't a sugar daddy or a fling. He was a partner, someone who respected my mind and loved my kids like his own. With his encouragement and connections, I reopened my small marketing consultancy. My first client? Sarah's law firm. My life was blooming, brighter than it ever had. Meanwhile, across the city, through a mutual friend, someone Jason forgot to block on Facebook, I heard how my ex-husband was doing. Jason was living in a 25-square-meter studio on the edge of town, the kind of place he used to sneer at as the slums. After paying out most of the assets to me to cover what he'd blown on his mistress and legal fees, he was almost broke. His luxury car was sold to pay debt. Now he commuted by bus or shared Uber. But the saddest part wasn't the money, it was his mind. Jason aged fast. His hair thinned, his belly grew from cheap fast food. On his social media, he started sharing bitter posts from red pill communities, whining about women these days being too materialistic, the law favoring women, calling marriage a trap. He still refused to see the truth. He built the trap. He was just stupid enough to step into it himself. That night, while I was getting the kids ready for bed, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the voice instantly. Chloe, I heard your mom is sick. Can I come by? We were family after all. I miss the kids. And I miss your cooking. I stared at the screen and felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just emptiness. Like looking at spam. He didn't miss me. He missed my service. He missed having a support wife, so he could chase thrills outside. He was lonely, starving for attention and reaching for his old supply. I didn't reply. I didn't block him. He needed contact for court-ordered parenting schedules, but I muted every message that wasn't about the kids. I set the phone down, pulled my children close, and finished their bedtime story. Jason once told me we needed new experiences to appreciate each other. He was right, but not the way he thought. Because of the new experience he forced on me, I realized how much I'm worth. I realized I wasn't a dried-up plant waiting for him to sprinkle water. I was an entire garden, and I'd wasted too many years watering a rock. He left this house to find greener grass because he thought ours was dying. He never understood one simple truth. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. Thanks for letting me go, Jason. The moment you loosened your grip, I finally got to hold the happiness that was meant for me.